I'm feeling a bit left out here. You seem to have a new top, bit of merch.
Bit of merch, yeah. Well, we've been thinking about this for a while, but we're doing a film shoot today, so we're going to get some BTS, as they say.
BTS.
Behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes.
So we thought we'd better up our merch game.
Look the part. And there's even a bit inside the hood there, is that?
Yeah, even inside. So we've tried to put a few slogans on. I guess we can post a few pictures, or if you're watching online. So we've got our brand values down the cord for the hoodie.
Yeah, nice.
And then inside the hoodie we've got building things of lasting value, which is, I guess, it's part of our purpose and stuff. So yeah, just kind of a bit different, really. Just
I would say give us a 12, but for most people listening, that won't help very much.
Yeah, I've got there's a logo on the back and stuff. So yeah, it's really, it's a top quality hoodie.
Comfy.
Very comfy. Shout out to Nina from Slogans in Shrewsbury, who went the extra mark, as I sort of went last minute thought, really got to get this merch sorted, and she's
it's nice to support local businesses. She's managed
to do it, support local businesses. She's just starting out, but really high quality, really impressed with what she's come up with. So
excellent. So what do I have to do to get mine then? Be a good boy for Christmas.
Yeah, exactly. No, so she only had
on a video shoot.
There was only 3 available, so we've had to medium, a large, and an extra large. So I'll leave it to the listeners to work out who got which one. But there's 3 of us on the shoot today, so we're
great.
They've got those.
Well, we'll talk about that a bit later on then, shall we?
Can do, yeah.
Good. Should we do a podcast? Hello and welcome again to the SME Growth Podcast from Wellmeadow, where every week we try and come up with something interesting that you as a business owner or senior manager might find interesting in your journey to help grow your business. I'm Dave Parry, and with me back in the hot seat is Richard Buckle.
Back again.
Rich, back again.
Back again.
So I did a guest one last week with Ed on the podcast. It's a bit daunting, actually, having a guest who's a professional BBC presenter.
I know, I feel like I'm in his seat now.
I know. Yeah, he sat there. So he gave us some good tips, and he looked over the kit and was very impressed with what we got and how we were doing it. But given that he gives lots of advice to other people doing podcasts, I thought it was good angle to get. And I think he gave some good quality top tips. It was excellent. Very good. So our new feature that we started a couple of episodes ago, when you and I are in the hot seats anyway, is to do a bit of business news to open the show.
Yep.
Right at the top.
Right at the top.
So I did a little bit of a scan around. Now, bearing in mind that this will go out a few days after we've recorded it, but it's kind of a, in case you missed it, type selection of articles. I don't think we're going to go deep diving in all these things.
No.
But people may well have seen bits and bobs. The main thing this week has been the autumn statement, which affects businesses in one way or another. And I should imagine everybody listening who's in business will have some impact as a result of this.
Yep.
Headline grabbing stuff. Was this a pre-election thing or not? I don't know. But NI reduced by 2 percentage points. Great, fine. That's put another couple of quid in your pocket. Maybe £400 a year for average salary, or maybe a bit more. So fair enough. Just bear in mind when you hear these headlines that only applies up to the £50,000 limit. So anybody above that doesn't get reduction. So it's the bit below that, the 12,750 to 50 odd grand. It doesn't apply to pensioners either.
Right.
Well, or people of pensionable age. So I was talking to a colleague last night who is still working, but he happens to be 66, so he doesn't get the benefit because he's over 66. There you go.
Well, they've had quite a big bump in pensions, I suppose.
Yeah, so he has just now started getting his state pension this year. So he's got less to moan about with his triple lock, hasn't he? Fiscal drag, we could talk about that. Everyone's talked a lot about it. The stealth tax, all the tax bans have been frozen and apparently will remain frozen until 2028 or something. So millions of people are going into these higher rates. And that's led us with the highest tax burden since the war or something. So it's quite interesting to read some of the commentary, actually, because some commentators are saying it's the highest tax burden and others are saying we can't afford the tax cut. So, well, you kind of it both ways, right?
Exactly.
OBR did some stuff. Did you pick up on that?
Yep, inflation down to just under 3% by the end of 2024.
Yeah, cross fingers, as they said that, I bet.
But then I suppose, who knows really? It's there's so much going on in the world nowadays, isn't there? That it doesn't take much to...
Well, as we found out, they didn't expect it to go up to what it went up to. And they're saying maybe get back down to 2% the year after that, which is the target.
Well, I read something the other day about people's energy bills coming down, but they were talking about, rather than that being driven by price, more driven by we've changed our habits.
Well, the price cap's just gone up, hasn't it?
Price cap's just gone up, but they're saying it might not. The impact of that might be dampened by the fact that, for example,
we turned the
thermostat's down probably by 2 or 3 degrees in the Buckle household.
Yeah. Well, we actually finally, after 20 years of living in a drafty house, put some double glazing in this year.
These mod cons.
One of the last houses in the country to have
Have you got the inside toilet yet?
Oh no, we're working on that. All right. Okay. Now, one thing that will impact all businesses is the living wage.
Yes.
National living wage, or minimum wage, as some people sort of call it. It's a slightly different thing. But that's gone up by a lot, nearly 10% for those. And I think one of the bigger bits of that is they've reduced, again, the minimum age where you get it from. So it used to be 25-year-olds, and then this year they changed it to 23-year-olds. Next year it's going down to 21-year-olds. So a lot more employees are now being picked up in that. And that's going up from 10.42 is it, to 11.44. But I think the other ones, more headline grabbing even than that, is the younger age group increases. And I'm quite interested in this because it's about where my kids are. But the under what was 23s and then 21s, they've gone up quite a lot. So the 21s and 22s, as I say, now included in the big one. But the 16 and 17-year-olds and the first-year apprentices, they've got an increase on their apprenticeship rate as well. Still remarkably low, that, don't you think? The apprenticeship rate, £6.40. You can be an apprentice who's late 20s. If it's your first year of being an apprentice, you still get £6.40 an hour.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem right, does it?
Well, I started pushing trolleys for £3 an hour.
Oh, here we go. Oh, when I was a lad.
£3 an hour.
I'm sure I got £1 an hour for my first job, which was clearing tables in the local Italian restaurant, putting them in the dishwasher.
But that was, I was pushing trolleys, 20 years ago or something, probably more. So £3 then, I guess, compared to £6, you're actually learning something, right? Yeah. I'm not knocking trolley pushing. Apprentice, it's harder than it looks.
Yeah. I'm sure you got quite a system.
I had a very good system.
The next one I thought was quite interesting because this is an example where I think companies should all be looking out on their environment scan. And if you haven't got an environment scan as part of your process, give us a call and we'll tell you about that. But keep your eyes out, basically. What's going on in the industry, what your competitors doing, what you're hearing on the grapevine, what your customers doing, what your suppliers telling you. That can be very interesting because they deal with your competitors. Yeah. Right? But apparently the growth in video calls has boosted cosmetic sales. So, if maybe you're not in the cosmetics industry, but what trends are you spotting where there's some knock-on effect that either you're going to benefit from or could capitalize on? So who would have thought, which boardroom of a cosmetics company, when video call and when Zoom went crazy, thought, hello, this is our opportunity. Cosmetic sales are going to go up now. Let's market the Zoom user.
Because I just tick the box in Zoom to make you look younger, isn't it? There's a magic.
I've not noticed.
There's a magic button, at least it used to be. But
yeah, it does. It fuzzes it out a bit. Takes your wrinkles away.
Exactly. So, but yeah, that's interesting. I mean, another piece of marketing-y related news that I saw, just a story really, I don't know if you saw it this week, on Stanley, the mugs. So I'd not really picked up on the fact that Stanley was really trendy again.
Yeah. There's loads of stuff you can get with Stanley brand. Yeah.
I thought it was something that you saw in
Workman's Tools
in B&Q or something, or your dad had or whatever, and that
tape measures. You always remember tape measure.
But then this week there was obviously that incident that went viral online with the lady whose car burnt, caught fire, and the Stanley mug kept the drink cool, still with the ice in it. It was amazing. Yeah, and then in I suppose a stroke of marketing genius, Stanley CEO reached out and said they were going to not only replace give us some mugs, but buy her a new car.
Right. So about getting headlines.
Brilliant. But yeah, I spoke to my kids about it. And they're like, we want Stanley, we want Stanley. So,
yeah, so I see. So it's cut through to the teens.
Oh yeah, they've all got everyone's got Stanley mugs now, apparently.
Wow, okay.
So I thought that was what intrigued me more. But I thought this was something that you see in your shed, isn't it? You go in there, you've got Stanley tools and whatever, but not that all of a sudden now kids want.
It's funny when you look back at brand history and how did they come trendy. They're often an accident. Vans shoes is another one where just someone started wearing it as a DJ in New York or something, and then it now all the kids want to wear Vans shoes. Yeah. Or Doc Martens, big trade about those.
But so that was
okay. A couple of survey results out this week on confidence, one on consumers, one on business, both getting a bit more positive.
Yep, by the looks of it. Yeah, I guess things are picking up.
I don't know if people who are listening to this are noticing that as well. I was in a board meeting the other day where there was certainly some more positive news. I think this tends to happen in capital goods markets around about the end of the year. because a lot of their customers work on January to December financial years. Budgets then get reset and you've got some spending power again. So all those projects that have been on hold for a month or two waiting for the budget, suddenly now we can get going, ready to place an order in January. That's good. And then the global S&P Purchasing Managers Index, PMI Index. Did you know we contribute to that?
I remember now, yeah. I remember filling a form in, yeah.
Yeah, so I have to fill in a survey every month and I say whether we've got more business or more employees or fewer and why and all that sort of thing. So yeah, that's gone up to above 50 on the global index for the first time in 4 months. So if you're all looking for positive news, then yes, there's some about, if you believe the surveys.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? I think there's be interesting to write into us and tell us how you feel about 2024, the prospects for 2024.
What are your budgets looking like?
Is it?
I remember this time last year, we had the Roger Martin Fag report come out, and he was saying, don't base your 2023 budgets on what you'd achieved in 2022, because it was such a bounce back from the COVID times that you're not going to replicate it. And yet, I'm not sure that's borne out. I've seen a lot of companies do well in 2022, great, and have carried on in 2023. So does his advice now roll over to next year? Was it an extended bubble or not? Or actually, have we all just, I don't know, got to a new normal?
Yeah, I guess, I don't know, if people adapted, if they, what role does AI play in all this? I think probably pretty low. Yeah. For most businesses.
At the moment.
It's still, I don't know, I wouldn't say gimmicky, but I suppose I use it less now than I did 6 months ago.
I've started to get a bit more cynical about how obvious it is that it's used. Notice YouTube have come up with a new thing where content creators now have the option to declare when their content has been AI generated. So it's not policed, I don't think. It's a self-declaration thing.
Can assure everybody this is real.
We are real today. We are real. We might do that language thing one of these other weeks. Come back to that. Anyway, different corners of the market doing well and badly. So something on the downside. Barclays in the news today, considering massive redundancies. Depends what your thoughts are about the whole banking sector. I've just opened a new bank account and boy was it a torturous process just to put some savings into it. But then on the other side, up in Sunderland, Nissan have just announced a couple of billion investment in the new EV plant. So if you're supplying anything in automotive, certainly in the north east, then you might see a boost from that. Regional differences. But just thank goodness you're not in Turkey. Interest rates have just gone up to 40%.
40%.
So if you think here 5.25 is bad enough, 40%. There you go. Now this next story. Did you pick up on this one? This Nvidia story. Did you see me put that?
No, I've seen your notes on it there. But yeah.
Intriguing. So a guy left, I think it was Valio as a company, and went to go and work for Nvidia. And he was doing a training session on Zoom or Teams or something with video share. And some of the people on the training session were from his old company, which was fine. That was known. But on his screen, they could see in his Explorer folder the folder names. And one of the folder names was, bearing in mind he used to work at Valio, the folder name was Valio Docs. and so he was
rookie move.
He was done. And Nvidia was sued by Valio because he'd stolen documents. And they had proof of it on the video share. So salutary lesson for everybody listening, whenever you're sharing your screen, just be careful what you're sharing, what's visible in the background.
Well, that's the same with notifications as well, isn't it? Careful of what notifications you have popping up on your screen if you're sharing things.
Yeah, sometimes I was given a training course earlier in the week and something did happen on my screen, but it was behind me. And there was a smirk in the audience for a couple of people. I thought, oh my God, what's just happened? You know what I mean?
Black Friday today. Have you got your shopping cart?
Are you taken in by Black Friday?
I don't even start thinking about Christmas until 4 weeks, isn't it?
Excellent, good. None of this September planning.
So Mrs. Buckle takes care of a lot of it, so I'm fortunate in that sense. Yes. But apparently the average spend, I've just looked up, this is American figures, but I'm sure it's not that different over here. $900 is what the average person spends on Christmas.
On Christmas, right?
On Christmas,
not Black Friday.
Gifts and things, I suppose. I can't even fill Mrs. Buckle's stocking for that.
$900. That could mean she's got big stockings.
We probably need to stop this, don't we? Yeah, let's not go there.
Yes.
She doesn't, by the way, but just in case she's listening.
So I was interested by that on this Black Friday story, a survey that Which did, where they took, what was it, 200 odd products, and they looked at the prices to see if they were actually any lower than the previous few months. And guess how many out of 200 were lower? Good, proper, genuine Black Friday deal.
50%?
5, not 5%, 5 prices were actually lower out of 200 and something. That's crazy, isn't it?
Well, it's just
surely the whole Black Friday. I mean, it only came about 10 years ago, didn't it? In the UK, it was always
probably less than that, really. 3 or 4 years ago.
It was when the e-commerce spike on the Thanksgiving Day in America led over to people shopping on the Friday afterwards and all that. And then it came over here, and it's just become this bandwagon that people have jumped on. Yeah. Black Friday on everything, even really inappropriate things. And it's just don't get it.
No, and it's just, it's a sale that never ends, isn't it? Just pump the prices up before, drop them for Black Friday. Everyone thinks they're getting a deal.
So at least I think in the UK we've got pretty good rules. We had a client once, didn't we? Had to really play around with this with the sofas.
Oh yeah.
Remember when Glenn came in and talked to us all about it? Price establishment is called. You have to establish a higher price and it be actually on sale, in store and all that sort of thing before you're allowed to say something's on sale. So maybe something to do with those rules don't apply in the wild west of online retailing. Probably does for the big retailers. But I guess there's so many small, if you're on eBay or Etsy or just an Amazon listing, you can get away with a lot more.
I think it's just a lot of hype, isn't it? A lot of it is you're worried you're going to miss out on the gift that you think, that's just playing into people's fears, isn't it? You're going to...
Well, maybe it serves some purpose in that it gets you to be a bit more prepared before that last minute purchase.
Well, I did read something from, I can't remember who it was, one of the retail consortiums or something, saying how consumer spending in the UK is down, but they were linking that potentially to just the timing of Christmas this year, because Christmas is on a Monday, isn't it? So you've got Saturday and Sunday before. So are people holding back a bit at the moment, just waiting to see what happens? Then you've just got this huge push that they're expecting at the back end of December, just before Christmas.
Yeah. Well, if anybody listening is in retail, I'd be fascinated to know how you're managing your stock. How do you know in that one weekend what you're going to shift?
Yeah.
Because it must be a nightmare to try and predict that. You don't want stuff left over because then that's all January sales stuff.
Yeah.
But you don't want to run out if demand is high. And I'm glad I'm not in retail. That's a tricky one. Wow. Okay, so that's a little roundup of the news. I think it's quite interesting just to go through some of the things. It's quite a lot going on that impacts businesses one way or another.
Yep.
And I'm particularly interested in things like that environment scan thing or where somebody got caught out on their Zoom call. It's not all about the autumn statement. But anyway, I hope you can all cope with your national living wage increases. I think it's generally a good thing, isn't it? We're just adjusting to a more...
Yeah, I did hear somebody talking about this, though, saying how it's a lot easier for larger companies, your Amazons of this world, and to absorb those wage increases.
Well, so having said that, there's a strike today on Black Friday at the Amazon depot. So what a day to choose.
So that just ends up getting passed on to the consumer ultimately. Yeah. They're pretty tight on their margins and controlling them. So whereas for smaller businesses, it can often be...
And hospitality as well.
Hospitality.
See, there's a few stories in the papers today about publicans moaning how they're going to cope.
Well, there's only so much you're going to pay for a pint or a burger or something, isn't there?
Well, that's the problem. That has to go up, doesn't it, if you're going to cover the increased costs of the staff. For sure. That's a tricky one. And the other one I think we'll probably hear more about in the next few weeks is about the vacancies rate. They've just been publishing some of the immigration figures up at 700,000 in a year or something, and we've still got 1 million vacancies, and that's what they're using that as a reason to cut back on some of the disability benefits rules. So it's a crazy world at the moment, just trying to adapt to this new world of labour availability.
I did try to start a commune up in Scotland this week.
Did you? Did you get very far in starting that?
Well, it's a work in progress. Relies upon me finding... I think they've got to fund about £150,000 a month for the mortgages. So you can buy in. I'm developing a scheme.
Where's this come from?
Just get away from it all, isn't it? I think there's a general trend.
So if you're not here next week, I know where you'll be somewhere in Scotland in the commune.
Yeah, in the commune. We've got quite a few people that are quite interested. I'm not sure how serious they are.
Yeah, I can imagine they're being polite.
They were, there was lots of different proposals of how we guard the property, ducks and towers and things like that. But
I think before we lose our audience entirely, we want to bring this back on track. Tell me about what you've been doing this week, Rich.
This week? Well, other than trying to start a commune.
No,
No, we're, as we talked about the merch earlier, and the branded hoodies and things. Because we're about to this afternoon go and do quite an interesting video shoot for Shrewsbury Museum and Art Gallery, and
Great.
They are
very well respected
museum
establishment,
and we did a bit of work for them in the past. They started last year a kind of come and visit Father Christmas thing. They've invested.
Was that the first time they did it last year?
Last year was the first time they did it. And it's all part of trying to promote the museum, and they're going for a much more kind of authentic Victorian, traditional. Like, it's definitely not Santa, it's Father Christmas, and the costume is all very on trend historically for Victorian Father Christmas and all that. So we thought, okay, well, how do we wanted to try and do something with them. And so we've come up with, we've really sort of gone to town a bit on the storyboarding of this and tried to just look at how do you tell the story of kind of going to visit not just Father Christmas, but visit the museum. And it's probably more involved than people think. I think there's I saw this great Instagram post the other day where just kind of what people think about making a video, and it's kind of concept video, it's concept, shoot it, edit it, done. And then actually what it is, there's probably, I don't know, so 20 or 30 steps in between all of those to make it all come to life. But a lot of what we've been doing is just thinking through, okay, well, how do we, what is the story? What's the concept that we're coming up with? And, I think by the time this comes out, it will all be revealed anyway. But it's very much about not trying to do too much of Father Christmas in it, but tell the story of a family just in town shopping. And then we've got a couple of little elves, which is, I've got my daughter and her friend playing the elves, which is quite cool. So they're going to almost kind of guide them into the museum, go through the shop, and then take them up to see Father Christmas type of thing. So, but just the logistics of that, when you start thinking through, okay, well, how are we going to make this make sense? What if someone's watching it without all the context behind it and all the thinking, how do you guide somebody we're not using any words, we're just going to have music over the top, so it's all got to be told visually. So it's been a really...
Well, that is the art of storytelling, isn't it?
Yeah.
And as we've discussed before, humans need stories to be able to get the messages across. Yeah. So what you're having to do there is to turn what I'm sure whoever has commissioned this piece of work has probably thinks, just bring some cameras in and film Father Christmas, put it to some nice music, that'll be fine. Turning that into a story is flipping difficult.
Well, I was looking at something yesterday saying some research around like long-term growth and how marketing budgets, how that should be fed into sort of growth. So 50% should be on short-term activations, short-term campaigns, and that can be very much numbers-based. So we're looking very much at your ROI, very tangible campaign. We've put this in, what do we get out, type of thing. And they're saying 50% should be around brand building. Because that's where the storytelling element comes in, because what you're trying to do is create that emotional connection with your target audience, with the view that over the long term they have greater brand association, brand affiliation. They'll suffer higher margins because they just want to be part of the brand because they're emotionally invested. And I think that's almost what we're trying to do with this. And it's partly experimental, but it's also how do you create that emotional connection around something. I
wonder how many marketing managers, directors out there think about the split of their budget in that way. Because it reminded me when you said that about a study that McKinsey did years ago now that I remember reading, where they said a 70-30 split between what works and experimentation. And even defining what fits into the bucket called what works, but on what timescale? Maybe your 50-50 is of the 70%, or who knows? Because it takes a long time to know whether something... like a bit of storytelling like that will work or not. We've done the same with things like ebooks that we've written before for ourselves and for our clients. In the first 6 months, maybe you just get a trickle of downloads, but then it seems to just get a bit of momentum and people are talking about it, it gets referred to and you get links posted on forums and suddenly the traffic goes up. Then you start getting a couple of inquiries, then you start winning some work like we did one this summer, didn't we? That was a case study of ours, which is great that it happens, but if you'd have judged that based on what you've got in the first 6 months, or even podcasting. I was talking about this to Ed last week when he came on. You can set up a podcast. We've been doing this for a year now, haven't we, on the SME Growth Podcast. when would you, if you had a really hard-nosed marketing director challenging us on how much time and money we spend doing this could have been canned a long time ago.
Yeah.
And yet it could well be that in 1 more year's time, or 2 more, 3, who knows, that you get that massive breakthrough from it.
But that's where I think it comes back to, with the storytelling and everything, it's back to really fundamental brand values, which is something we've been talking about this week with a couple of clients. Because I think that if you really get into that, why? Who are we? Why are we? What's our purpose? What's our values? What are we trying to do here? That is not that shouldn't be a short term, in a short term kind of focus. That's a really kind of, we're in this for the long term, 10, 20 years. So if you start thinking about it, when you're telling stories, when you're trying to create that emotional connection, it's a bit strong for B2B, but it's still, we're all still humans, right? So, but that really tapping into who are we, what are our values, what are we trying to get across here, how do we really show our customers that we care?
Yeah.
And you could do that with some stats. You could say, okay, well, look at our service rates, 99% customer satisfaction. Like, really? But actually, if you saw a really emotive, why do we go to the cinema? Why do we spend so much money on, 100 million on making the latest blockbuster? It's because we really do connect with these stories. And I think maybe for a lot of either SMEs or B2B marketing, it can seem a little bit fluffy or...
Well, we've talked before about marketing being the poor relation in the C-suite. And it needs, one of our missions is to make sure that companies properly take marketing seriously and realize that it's an essential business function to generate leads, either short term or long term. So that's the problem anyway. But as you say, if the business isn't set up to even think about marketing itself being useful, it's another step of understanding beyond that to say, let's tell our story well, as opposed to just list some features or maybe list some benefits if they're a bit better and quote a load of stats.
I think there's a couple of things around it. I mean, if you wanted to get kind of hard-nosed about it, you could say, you've got to come up with a story that hits emotionally. That's it's not really a good story if it doesn't, right? The best stories we know do something to us that make us think differently or challenge assumptions or
surprise or humor or whatever, but it's got to have a reaction.
But I think it's got to be done really well. So that's not just in terms of, does the story arc make sense? Is this coherent as a piece of work? Can somebody who has got no context at the start of it follow it? It's got to be filmed really well. So the cinematography's got to be good, which there's then into, have you got expertise around lighting, camera equipment, shots? All of that has got to come together. And the amount of work we put in this week on that has been pretty phenomenal.
Well, like you said earlier, people don't realize that the whole shoot has already been done with dummy scenes and dummy setups and dummy cameras just to see how it works. And hang on, that's not going to work with that background. Let's get that sorted, that lighting.
And it's not until you get...
The client won't know that.
We did a
recce.
You turn up
and
this
they
week.
don't know you've done a recce.
And we look at it, and we've probably done 3 recces this week, different times a day, because some of it we're filming at night. So we've got to go there at night to see how it works. And then some of it is, you go to on set and you think, well, this is what we're going to do. Then you suddenly look at it and think, well, that's not going to work because there's that thing in the background or there's that there. Yeah. So all of that kind of composition has all got to work. But I think as well, being hard-nosed about it is what do you do after? So it's all well and good, we've spent all this time getting to the point of making this emotional piece, but then how do we measure this? How do we measure success? Yeah. What does it look like? And that's where I think you can start to apply more numbers-based stats. What's what are we getting reach? How are we going to measure the success of this? And I think that to me is where you kind of start to blend. It's not just about creating a nice artistic film. It's about creating something that is got some evergreen element to it, so they can reuse this for the next 2 or 3 years, probably longer, because it's going to be pretty timeless in the most liberal sense of the word. But that also, how are we thinking about measuring this going forward? Like, what results are we trying to get?
But if you think about that right from the beginning, even though you're filming something which has definitely got a Christmas theme, you can be collecting footage while you're at it, which can be used in the summer for something else. It doesn't have to be just for that. As long as you've thought about that beforehand and you make sure that you don't have the Christmassy stuff.
Well, we've looked at a couple of options as well to do, cross-sell, upsell opportunities. So personalized video from Father Christmas, for example. So we can film that. It doesn't actually cost much more to have Father Christmas saying something to camera that you can then purchase for a amount of money, if they choose to do that. And so again, taking that more commercial view of it.
Yeah.
What can we do with it? So it's not. So I think the takeaway message is create something that does look really good, because we are all now conditioned to be visual people.
Well, I was going to say that halfway through your list there, that's surely more acutely important now than it was just a few years ago, because we're all used to seeing so much better quality stuff being pumped out by even amateurs on TikTok or Instagram or whatever, and we now have to make sure that as professionals we're ahead of that. We can't just do the same as with an iPhone and a bit of shaky footage.
Yeah. And I think whilst, you probably could create something, you see these people, okay, we can create something great with an iPhone. Yeah, maybe. But I think really you've got to be looking at getting decent kit involved. 4K, 6K, 8K kind of cameras. It just gives you so much more.
Depends how you can use it afterwards, doesn't it? But you're going to want multiple cameras, you're going to want gimbals, you want the lighting, you then got to properly edit it, you've got to think a lot about audio, however you're going to use that. So many angles to it that you've got to get right.
Yeah, we've even got a little bit of CGI stuff going into it, so just add a little bit of festive magic to that.
Very good.
So it'll be interesting to see how it goes today,
Yeah, well, good luck with it later on.
Actors involved as well, so it's...
But some good points there, I think, for anybody listening that's more in the promotional side of the world and the marketing side. If you've got to tell stories, however you do that. Video is a great way of doing it. It's not the only way. But however you do it, you've got to think about this story arc.
Yeah.
And make sure that you're somehow connecting with people and not just blasting them with stuff, telling them about your new employee or your new award.
And I think there is a real opportunity with a little bit of creative thinking to take a business that even may on the face of it look a little bit staid or boring and turn it into something that actually is engaging for your customers and stakeholders.
And if you can't do that, you're not going to be able to sell, right?
Yeah.
You're only going to have the same old customers. You're not going to grow anyway. You've got to be able to reach new people in new ways.
So if anybody wants to make a sort of Tarantino style version of their business, then get in touch and we'll do you a good deal.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Rich. Good. Well, no doubt we'll be feeding back on that in a future episode as to how that's gone.
Yep.
Great. So thanks again for watching or listening to the SME Growth Podcast from Wellmeadow. Every week we try and come up with something interesting. And if you've got any requests, we'll certainly consider what else we can include in a future podcast. And we're always looking out for guests as well. So tune in on another week and see what else we've been up to. We'll give you some updates as we go along, as well as some of the news summaries that we do now at the top of the show. So thanks a lot. Share the podcast, follow us so you get that little bell ting to let you know that another episode has dropped. But tell your mates that we're here and spread the word. In the meantime, good luck with your business.